Ranking of Kings is special and so are you.
You're my little dog champ.
Sometimes you stumble across a show that from the start grabs you by the neck with an iron grip and just never lets you go. Showing an eruption of orchestrated violence and eye-catching visuals, a smack in the face by a breathtaking world waiting to be explored. A premise so juicy and spicy that you cannot help but crave seeing where the story is going next, or the community's favorites, plain simple degeneracy. In a market with so many great shows and limited time that it's almost impossible to catch up on all of them, that first impression is crucial in determining whether or not this is worth putting your time and commitment into. Ranking of Kings is not a show that blew me away with its first episode. It gives the impression of an okay Ghibli show set in, God forbid, yet another medieval fantasy land that, aside from some lively animation and a unique style, doesn't really do anything groundbreaking or interesting, appearing as yet another grain in the endless desert of anime mediocrity. And that's is where they had us. Ranking of Kings deceives you. The aesthetic, the character designs, it puts up a false pretense to hide what it really is. A good fucking show. Beyond all doubt, with how strong the first season was, and with a new part of the manga already confirmed and in the making, Ranking of Kings is setting itself up to become a new, modern classic. But how did we get to that point? Who are these characters? What is the Ranking of Kings? And is it important? It might be. And above all, what is it that makes the show so special to me and so many others out there? Ranking of Kings is set in a land of myth and a time of magic, with giants and demons and talking mirrors and everything in between, and it's technically about a young boy on his journey to become a great king. But describing it as such would be like saying Attack on Titan is about attacking titans. This was my review on Attack on Titan. Please remember to like and subscribe. In actuality, Ranking of Kings' story is a larger web of plotlines stemming from the motivations of various characters within and outside of the kingdom, with the main protagonist's journey only being one thread of that bigger picture. This is Bojji, codename Small Boss, a young boy born small and deaf who will one day inherit the throne from his father, the King of Boss. Except there's one big problem. He's deaf and small. The world in which Ranking of Kings is set is one all about the wealth of the kingdom and the individual physical strength of the king. The stronger you are, the higher you rank on the Ranking of Kings, with the strongest being granted a special treasure from the vault of the gods. Strength is everything, and with Bojji being small and deaf, he is far from anyone that people want to see sit on the throne. He knows this, the people around him know it, and even his stepmother knows it, and as such he is committed to train himself to become a person to live up to his father's legacy and prove everyone wrong. It is a perfect setup for a coming-of-age underdog story. We got a weak protagonist nerfed by forces outside of his own will, having to struggle against impossible odds to achieve a lifetime dream. Like, I swear, all he needs is a 40-second Rocky montage and it will go from a weak baby man to, yes mother, it will be your diapers that's gonna be changing next. But no matter how hard Bojji trains, how many hours he spends swinging around a sword and trying to push past his limits, by the end of the first season he isn't even strong enough to pick up a normal sized rock, let alone swing a sword. And while he does have something he's amazingly good at, being a professional Toho player, it is not a fighting style that the people around him deem worthy of a king. To move the very mountains with a single swing or pulverize what or whoever stands in your way while barely lifting a finger. This is what the people see as the sole truth and expect from the successor of their beloved king. Ranking of Kings TM is not about putting all the kings in an arbitrary tier list and selling it off as the objective truth. It is about perception, how we perceive people, how we perceive an ideal, how we perceive ourselves, and ultimately, how those perceptions can have a tangible effect on ourselves or others around us. Take Kage for example. This guy is literally a black blob who robs a little kid of his clothes in the very first episode. How the hell are you gonna make you sentimental about him, huh? Well, for starters, his entire clan got genocided because some dickhead lord felt like it. The last thing Kage saw of his family was the corpse of his mother impaled on a pike. Everyone he meets shuns, insults, or beats the crap out of him, and when he finally meets someone like a father figure, and I use that term very loosely, it is certainly not long-lived. And that's just half an episode. The entire world perceives Kage as a sludge that shouldn't walk the earth, and it is those perceptions that change the way he comes to see himself. Going from an innocent little blob boy to a cynical thief that only cares about his own well-being. But then he meets Bojji, a boy who is overjoyed to finally have someone whom he can freely talk to, who understands him, who he can share a dream with, and seeing this enthusiasm, this kindness, and this sincere desire to connect reminds Kage that children are really easy to steal from. They're off to a rocky start for sure, like the guy robs him 2 times. But the more time the two spend with each other, the more it reminds Kage of the person he was before he became so jaded by all the prejudices of the people around him. Seeing this boy trying his hardest alone in his corner against a world that does not accept him reminds him of himself and sparks something inside of him. A will to be better, a conviction to believe in another human being again, and a promise never to let Bojji fight alone ever again. It is by far one of the most wholesome friendships I've seen in a while, with Kage fighting by Bojji's side and supporting him in his times of need, and Bojji in turn showing that Kage is a friend worth treasuring. If there's one thing this anime does well beyond anything from the season, or hell even this year, it's how well all of these characters are written. Bojji and Kage appear simple from the outside, but the more you watch them, the more you peel away the layers of complexity you couldn't see from the first preconceived glance. When I started Ranking of Kings, I thought I 300 IQ'd this shit and figured out all the archetypes and what all these characters were going to do in the story. This is obviously the evil stepmother you see in the Disney movies who tries to commit subtle acts of child slaughter. We have the mean stepson who thinks he's hot shit just because he can beat up a toddler. A strict but kind teacher who stands by the pupil's side till the end. And a greedy con artist who only thinks of himself and is in general just an awful human being. But as I watched, I was proven wrong, half correct. Again, Ranking of Kings plays off of our preconceptions to subvert our expectations, and it does so masterfully. These are not one-dimensional characters. Every person has their own agenda, their own past, and wishes that go far beyond that first impression, transforming simple side characters into full-on dynamic players that all work towards their own goal in their own way. Yes, Daida might have beat the shit out of what is basically an infant and labeled himself asshole of the year, but he's also just a dumb kid stringed along in the schemes of a master manipulator who has been taught from a young age that power is everything and those without it are failures. Domas might have appeared like the strict but just teacher, and then he yeets Bojji off of a cliff. And Hilling has that cold and uncaring stepmother aura emanating from her, but behind all of that scolding hides a socially awkward mother who loves both of her sons equally and would do anything to keep them safe, but is also harsh on them with the intention of protecting them from the world. By the time this script was written, please don't ask me when these scripts are written, my favorite characters of the show for how well they're developed through the story are Daida and Hilling. Mara fans? Weak. Shikimori stands? Pathetic. Step aside, hoes, for a real queen. The story also gets fucking crazy when it gets going, with so many different interesting parties in the mix, with so many different plot lines, almost turning it into one perfect engaging plot that it almost felt like I was playing a Trails game. Without hating myself for it. The engaging, multi-layered story, the interesting characters, the great animation, even the fact that the sign language in the show was supervised by Tokyo Federation of the Deaf. All of this is already enough to make Ranking of Kings stand out as one of the greatest shows to have come out in years. But above everything this show manages to do, the thing that makes Ranking of Kings such a special show to me and so many others out there, is this genuine message about confidence it is trying to tell. I don't know what it's like to live with a disability, and I'm not going to pretend I know what it would feel like. So what I'm going to say is purely from my own experience of having several chronic ailments that influence my life on a daily basis. It can be hard to be confident in yourself if all you see is a norm you don't fit into. It can be hard to trust yourself if you suddenly can't do the things you love normally anymore. You may think it's unfair or blame the world. Why me? Why not them? Why do I have to shoulder this burden? It can feel like you are special. But if there's one thing to take away from Bojji's journey, is that while your illness or injury or even your self-doubt is part of you, it doesn't define who you are, what you can achieve, and who you can still become. Accept every part of yourself. Have the courage to say, this is who I am, and no matter how high the wall is that stands between you and your dream, notice you don't always have to go over it. You can also go around it. At the end of the day, there's no one who can decide your own worth and your own path, but you.
So tell me why I'm here and what's the reason.
Hey, it's your low-class YouTuber speaking. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. Last time I said I was going to make the videos I've always wanted to make. That statement is still very true, even though it was very recently when I got so attached to Ranking of Kings. And I wanted to make this video cause, well, as someone who's been struggling with IBS and RSI and some really dumb chronic case of the cold, these were the words I've always wanted to hear from someone else. And, well, if that made your day a bit, then be sure to stick around. Anyway, that's it for now, and see you all in the next video.